We want to look, though, at some of the testimony in this case. Bo Duke's uncle testified earlier this morning to recall bonfires on the farm that he saw back in 2005. And you'll recall, sadly, horrifically, that Tara Grinstead's body was burned. And it was burned beyond all recognition. And just remains of her body were found years later. So during opening statements, the state kind of laid out how Bo Duke is involved in all of this. Let's listen to what the prosecutor told the jury.
And you'll hear him confess that he later goes back and gets his friend Bo Dukes. You will hear him repeatedly during his confession say that Bo Dukes was never at Tara Grinstead's house. But what happened was after he had dumped her on essentially Bo's family's land. He was familiar with it because he and Bo were best friends, and they went and had bonfires out there all the time. And at some point after that, he goes and he gets Bo. And initially, I think he'll tell you, you'll hear in his confession, that Bo didn't really believe him. But finally, he and Bo drive out there. He takes Bo to where her body is. And he'll tell you that Bo and he then take her body and move it to another location in the Pines. You'll see a video of him showing law enforcement trying to locate the place where they, in his words, cremated her. It's changed since then. But he's out there. Incidentally, he's handcuffed, smoking a cigarette, walking around in the woods just fine, trying to show them where he cremated, he and Bo.
Now we wanted to hear from Bo Duke's uncle. He owns that pecan orchard, the farm, where near, the remains, I guess, were found right on the outskirts of the farm. And he guided the Georgia Bureau of Investigation during the investigation. So let's listen to what Randy Hudson testified to and what he told the jury.
A site that you helped show the GBI back in 2017. If you'll tell us where that was again so they can see and hear.
Yes. The site where I actually showed the GBI agents was back over on this ridge here, way in the back here.
Now, you had described earlier for us the first set of bonfires and then a second location from the second fire. This location, is this for the second fire or that for the first fire that you described?
It's the second fire.
All right, and that would be the second fire that was around the pine thicket. Is that the one you're talking about?
It's a pine thicket back on an oak ridge.
Now, with regard to the particular burn site you're speaking of, did you, what did you do? Did you talk with GBI about that location?
When asked the question about an unusual burn, I told them yes, there was another location where there was another burn. And so I told them about that site, yes.
And did you, as a result of that, direct them to that site?
Yes, I did.
So Joseph Scott Morgan, this is in your wheelhouse. We have a discussion about a fire in the area where this body was apparently burned. So this is important testimony. I mean, you have the guy that owns the place talking about this. He's aiding in the investigation. And whenever I hear about bodies being burned, it's just one of the most horrific things I think that we can talk about, aside from murder and sexual assault, obviously, but that just takes to be crimes to a whole nother level because of how difficult it is to burn a body.
Yeah, you're right, Angenette. And here's the key, I think, and what makes this all the more horrific is the fact that when they were in the process of, as they put it, cremating the body, because this is not obviously a traditional cremation like you have with a professional that's doing this, there is a requirement of tending the fire because, as you stated, it's very difficult to do. So bodies don't react well with fire as a fuel source. So you have to continue to apply fuel like wood You have to stir the fire. You have to continue to keep the coals hot. And there's a lot of work that goes into this. And, over the years, myself and other colleagues, throughout the years have worked cases like this. And you have people that do a very poor job most of the time because they want it done quickly. And, there's evidence that they may have hit this fire for a protracted period of time. And that goes to planning, I think, to a great degree. You have to supply the wood. You have to tend it, that is turning the fire, and then continue to apply the wood and go out and acquire more. This is beyond, just using an accelerant, where you just dump gas on something, set it on fire and walk away. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a purposed event. And so that gives you an idea. And to get the body to the point where the body is rendered down as far as Tara's body was, gives you an idea of how much care was taken with the fire and how intense this heat was.
Yeah, it takes some work. And unfortunately, I mean, I can speak to this. I certainly am not a death investigator like you are, but I have unfortunately covered cases where bodies were burned. And I mean, stirring, yes. Stoking, yes. Continuing to fuel the fire, yes. But also, a lot of times there's a process by which, and I hate to be so grotesque and morbid, but the bones are chopped up as well in order to, and bone is hard to do that too. And there comes a time, I guess, in this whole process too, Joseph, correct me if I'm wrong, where there's a calcification that takes place of the bone as well. It takes a lot to do that, because if you cremate a body in a crematorium, it goes into an oven, and isn't it like 1,500 to 3,000 degrees in these ovens where the actual real cremation takes place?
Yeah, and a lot of it is dependent upon the body mass. None of this stuff is like right down the middle, but you're looking at north of 1,300 degrees, and this is the key here. And I need everybody to understand this, because you mentioned the word oven, and that's what a crematory is. Okay, this is not a contained area, Angenette. You've got a big open space. So that just doubles the work that goes into this. You don't have a contained area where the heat is being directly applied. You're losing heat, you're losing energy. So that's what you're looking at, that the involvement here of the perpetrators, where they're always having to tend the fire, stoke the fire, turn the fire, all of these sorts of things, and apply this constant source of fuel. It just intensifies it. With the standard cremation, you have a natural gas supply, where you push the remains in, you shut the door, you turn on the gas, and it renders down the body at that point in time. Not in this case. Not in this case.
Yeah, and again, not to be so morbid, but this is, it's a process, and it's a horrific process. So just think about how long that would take and what that would take to burn a body. It's horrifying.